Hello and welcome to 360 Chat. My name is Stephen Britton and my special guest in the next episode is going to be Amy Yip. Amy is a life transformation coach. She's also a fitness mental coach as well. So she is going to talk to us about her life career, what she's doing right now, what she's been up to in lockdown as well. So
I wanted to share some really good news with you.
Oh, okay.
So I kicked off the circle last Friday.
All right.
I think I was telling you how I was stressing and I was all nervous. And on Saturday, I got an email from one of the participants and she said, "Today was amazing. Congratulations on leading a truly impactful session. The hour we all spent together is still floating around in my head. You were able to accomplish something that my therapist has been working on with me for months, how to tap into the feelings of the inner child. It's amazing how close you can feel to people you just met. How lucky are the five of us? Thank you for dreaming this up and making it happen. I feel so blessed that you found your calling and that you're now teaching us how to find ours."
Oh, Amy.
That just totally made my weekend. And, yeah, I'm like, oh.
That is really good. Oh, well done you. Brilliant job. That's fantastic. So when's your next one?
So it's a 5-week program. So I had a lot of applicants and it's 6 people in each group. So I was originally only going to run 1, but now I'm running 2. So I run 2 on Fridays. So there's 12 women going through them and it's for 5 weeks. So Friday was the first session.
Amy, so tell us more about your the circle then. What's it all about?
Yeah, so it's a women's virtual inner circle, and the whole concept of it is to create a safe space where women feel supported. They can come in completely vulnerable and share, go through their inner critic, their judges, their fears, their dreams. And the whole idea behind it is oftentimes you don't feel safe talking about these things with your friends, with your family, and you feel alone sometimes. And so the space is bringing in 6 complete strangers into a safe place where you can openly share and talk through topics that are relevant, and you just feel so supported and understood.
I like that. I really, I mean, I wanted to create something myself similar to that, but in fact, it's kind of like, that's it. That's what it is, isn't it? It's small enough and not too big to be intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. I want to hear more about that from you later on, how that goes, because I certainly look at those and think we need more of that.
Mm-hmm.
We need more groups together, although we all communicate, and there's really some nice individuals, but I think we kind of switch off like we do with videos. We'll watch a video, that 7-second rule that happens and everything, but you watch a video, when you swipe for another video, it's already gone. Where this one I think is a little bit more, you stick with it and it's kind of more memory. It's not just someone saying something and then, oh, you remember that for half an hour. It's actually sticking with you. It's really good. And I can tell you're really, really pleased about it.
I am, because it's the experience and creating that safe space to be vulnerable and to just say all of the things that you dream about and that you're afraid of and that you're challenged with. Because sometimes it feels like you're alone, and when you can share that with other people, it feels different and you feel more strength. And it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, even though a lot of people fear vulnerability because they think that it's being weak, when it's actually not. It takes a lot more courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's it's interesting, and also that when you keep saying the word vulnerable, people are afraid to be vulnerable, and then they're not truthful to themselves or anybody else, and no one can help. Definitely, I mean, I'm very guilty of that, sort of helping out when we're in our industry and what we do, and always helping and honest with our clients, but we're not really honest with, well, I personally am not honest all the time with myself, and think, yeah, that would be nice every now and again to have my own little group to help myself out. But in fact, you're hitting all buttons there, because you're helping them, they're helping you, and you're each other. So it's a nice supportive. So people in the group, are they coming from individual backgrounds?
All backgrounds. It's specifically right now, the group is in the US,
Okay.
so that they have an understanding of the culture, but it's all over the US. All women, because it's a women's inner circle, but the age ranges from like 29 to 45. They're in all different occupations, all different places in the US. But there's this connectedness of just like being able to share and understand each other. And I think the first session, we went through the inner critic and the inner judge, and that's a very common thread. All humans have such tough inner critics, and we think that only we have that, but every person has it. And it comes from survival. It's the survival brain. The brain is not created to help you be happy or to pursue your dreams. It's for survival. It tells you to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And so it's, how do you overcome that inner critic and inner judge? And I think by starting off with that topic, everyone just connected right off the bat.
Amazing. And so how do they join? Is it something like a membership? Do they pay monthly? Is it free? What is it?
So there is an application process, because I want to make sure that everyone is fully committed. When it's such a small group of 6 people, you need people who are going to be fully committed, who are going to show up, because even if one person bails out or skips a session, like, it disrupts the flow of things. And we also know that a lot of times the thing that is for yourself, even if you know it's good for you, even though you know you want it, it's going to be the first thing that drops off your list when stuff happens with your family, stuff happens at work, and you don't show up, And so it's, how do you make sure that people come fully ready to be engaged? And so there's an application process, and there's also a cost to it. And part of it is, you value things more when you invest money into it. It's ironic, like psychological. I had wanted to offer this for free, but after talking to a lot of women, they had said, I would prefer paying, because I know that I would be more committed if I paid something towards it. So there's a payment, and then there's actually a deposit on top of that, and a deposit for every session. So if you miss a session, you don't get that deposit back for that session, and that money gets donated to a nonprofit that supports some sort of a women's cause.
Okay.
And if you attend, you get it back.
Okay.
Incentive, prioritize yourself and to show up.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, because the reason I asked that question, and you've answered it already, and that is, it's so easy to do things free, and for you as a business, it can highlight you, and yes, it can promote you, great. But in fact, people, when anything's free, they're not committed. And I think most people know this now, that anything that's free, you see it all the time, it's free. And it's a typical mind, because when you look at the other person on the other side, they see it's free, they don't think it's the value is not there, and they're already turned off by free. So it's kind of like pricing it at the right price, but at the same time making sure it's valued, but it's also is it something for them anyway in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, the ironic thing, because I do that too. If it's free, if I get busy, it's the first thing that drops off my calendar. Even if I'm excited to do it, I'm like, oh, well, it's free. I didn't pay anything, and I've got all this other stuff to do. So I'm going to drop this thing first.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've managed to do that because Amy, I know you're in Ghana.
Yes.
And I know Ghana is a beautiful place. Never been there, but I know it's a beautiful place. But as far as internet's concerned, have you had any challenges with your internet in that respect?
Yes. I would say the biggest challenge here is inconsistency of the internet, and also blackouts. So whenever there's blackouts, the electricity goes out. Anytime it storms really heavily or the clouds come over, the internet is very unstable and becomes really slow. So I have to plan around that. But having been here for, I guess, like 6 months or 6, 7 months already, we've been able to predict when it would work and when there are blackouts. So typically really early in the mornings and probably around after 6 p.m. here, it'll start raining, the clouds will come in, and then the internet starts becoming unstable. So we've been able to work around it, but it's sort of a good thing because it forces me to get offline and make time for myself to just pick up a book, read, go to bed, like, really take care of myself. So it's been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I know exactly how that feels. That's why I asked the question. And you've already led on to that. It's when you find that the quality is not there, it puts you off and think, well, okay, I need to get as much as I can done in this time because I don't want to spend any more, because it's just can be frustrating when you're used to that quality. But at the same time, as you just said, you go out and go, actually, I'm going to go out now, and you find out there's a real world, not the virtual one.
Yes.
That's brilliant. And so how is Ghana dealing with the CV-19 at the moment? Any improvements?
It hasn't been too bad here. I think we're at about 35,000 cases. The first case was back in March. And part of the reason is because they were very proactive. So as soon as the first case happened, they shut down borders, they had stay-at-home orders, they sprayed stuff, like they just made all these mandates, and that helped to really keep things safe.
Right.
And since then, and this is a country where people live hand to mouth.
Okay.
And so after 3 weeks of stay at home, the government had to deliver food, breakfast, lunch, dinner to a lot of families, and they just couldn't sustain that after 3 weeks. So they had to lift the orders, allow people to go back to work, but they still kept funerals and weddings and things prohibited, bars, things like that. And they've just started to slowly lift that ban. The borders are still closed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but things are okay.
So when they did open the door and said, okay, people go back to work because of those reasons, and I get that. Did they automatically have to cover up, or was that something later on, like here in the UK?
You mean with the masks?
Sorry, yeah, with the mask, yeah. Do they have to?
Masks are mandatory. You can get fined if you don't wear it. You have to socially distance. Over here, funerals and church are huge, and it's like hundreds of people. The funerals are like parties, and churches are just hundreds of people in church for hours every weekend, and they had to ban those. And some churches continue to operate, some funerals still continue to operate, and in order to showcase, like, we won't tolerate this, the government actually went around shutting those down. They would catch people, arrest people, to just say, like, hey, it's not okay to do that. And same thing with the masks. You have to wear a mask right now if you're in public.
And I assume that most people were kind of abiding by the law, and there wasn't too much issues.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard in the USA, your lovely country, and the UK, they're very much not so much want to follow those laws. But I don't want to go too much on the negative stuff, because it's interesting that we do see now that 2020 is something. A lot has happened in 2020 so far, and on a personal level, I kind of look at it as not positive, but there are just not negatives in these sort of things going on. But a lot of people want to turn 220 and cancel it. Have you ever heard that? Like, let's cancel 220 and just go into 221. In your view, whether it's personal or in general, what do you see in 220 that's more positive? What can we take out so far? We've had 8 months of it, of this year. Is there anything that you see positive that you could take out of this now?
So a lot of things. I think people are starting to take a pause. And I think that's why some people want to cancel it, because when you pause, you have to do a lot of inner work and self introspection. And sometimes you don't want to see what's on the inside, and you don't want to do that difficult work because it's uncomfortable. It could be scary, it could be painful, but that's what actually forces us to grow. And I'm actually in Ghana because I left my corporate job in January, packed up everything in my little New York apartment, and my husband and I took a one-way flight out here so that we could volunteer. We're volunteering at a breast cancer hospital. And then our plan was, starting in May, we would just travel the world. We had grand plans of doing a lot of stuff. We are supposed to be in Kenya by now. And clearly all of that is on hold. And the gift of it for me personally, it's given me the space to just sit and to grow and to learn about myself. My husband and I are in this tiny little room together all the time, and our relationship has grown significantly because we've learned how to deal with each other in a small space like that, and to be together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we've also learned to appreciate the little things. Every morning we have our Nescafe packets of coffee. We don't even have real coffee beans here. And it's our favorite time in the morning. We make our cafe packets and use milk from a little packet also. And it's our favorite moment in the morning, just sitting outside and enjoying our coffee and having a conversation. And so I think that this time has been a gift because it really allows you to learn to appreciate the little things, the little moments, and to realize that perhaps the pace that all of us we were moving at was a little too fast. We were not present. We weren't living. It was like you're constantly on the go, and I was no different. I used to be on an airplane every 2 weeks. I traveled all over the world. I think in 2019, I traveled around planet Earth 8.5 times.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. That's how much I was on airplane.
Gosh. I mean, I wouldn't jump on a plane now, but that's for sure. That's a lot.
It was too much. And now, like, the past 6 months, I've been between the hospital, where we live, and the grocery store, and that's it. And it's a lot simpler, and I get sleep, and I feel rejuvenated and excited about what I'm doing every single day.
Yeah. And what about your husband? Did it feel the same? Do you feel? I mean, you have to speak on your husband's side.
No, we've talked about this a lot, and he feels the same. We used to live in New York, and honestly, we were very spoiled in New York. We had amazing food all the time. We were spoiled by the good coffee. And we didn't appreciate it. I think one of our last meals there, it was at this very nice restaurant, and we both left it and we're like, well, that was okay. And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, we're spoiled, and then now out here, we feel spoiled with the other night we had canned escargot.
A what? So a what?
Escargot, snails.
Yeah. Okay.
It comes from a can, and it's canned, and we took it out, cooked it in butter, put some garlic in it, and it tasted delicious. And that, to us, that's like a treat now, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
It's a slow treat.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. You know what? It's actually reality, because a lot of people are having to go to shops now, where before they could only go to the supermarket and they have to queue for hours sometimes, and obviously there are sections, but they appreciate it now. They think, oh my goodness, we could just walk into a 24-hour store anytime we wanted before, and now we've got a queue outside. And people used to moan and queue if they were inside and there were 4 people, 5 people, and they'd be looking for another line if there was someone that one person shorter. That's how fast, as you were saying, we would not slow down. We're not appreciating what's going on in our lives. That's really good. I think, Amy, in your country, in the USA, I know they're struggling now. Um, when you do go back, are there any sort of things that you kind of feel the first thing I want to do there is?
Get a good coffee. I think that the first thing that I would want to do is spend time with my parents. I miss them tremendously. And that would also, I would say, is one of the other gifts out of this, is just I have found that I've learned to appreciate time more, and time with family, and time connected, even if it is virtually. I will drop everything and spend the time to talk to my parents, talk to my family if they ever need, versus before. I think I was so sucked into working all the time, and if I became too busy with work, then I wouldn't talk to friends or family or any of that, because I just didn't have time. But I miss my parents tremendously. They're back in DC, so I'm excited. That's probably the first thing. I'm gonna go home, run to my mom, give her a big hug, and she's gonna cook me delicious food. I love my
Oh
mom's
yes.
cooking.
Yeah, home cooking. Yeah, I know my wife's home cooking is missed that tremendously, but my wife cooks very well as well. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's probably a lot of people who, because they're not being able to see their parents, and they're probably looking forward to that, especially those who've got grandchildren. I know it's happening now. They're now meeting their parents, but not all. Some are still not able to do that. But I know you're a life transformation coach, a mental health coach as well. So I can understand that you've been busy and you're in it all the time, and you're helping others, and now you're seeing all of that work that you've been doing for others. You're doing it for yourself. In that respect, do you feel it's time to look at your profession in a different way, or do you think there's a new perspective of how life coaches in general are looked at, and will they be needed more or less likely to be needed because there's more information out there to self-help?
So that's a very interesting question. I've actually picked up more clients now because I think people are starting to take a pause and question, what am I doing with my life? Am I living a meaningful life? What do I want out of life? What have I been doing with my whole life? And so I think there's a deeper introspection that's happening with people now, in realizing that they want to live a more meaningful life. And if things were, at their deathbed, they want to have said, I lived this sort of life, and this was who I was. This was the being that I was, rather these are all the things that I've done, like checklists and titles and, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so I think people are starting to see coaching as something that they want more of than before.
Yeah. Now, and I'm glad you said that, because I think obviously in our profession, we love what we do, and if we're the more customers, doesn't mean that there's more pain going on. It just means there's more people know that they will go forward by getting that support and help, because that's what we know. We want the same, but we've invested in ourselves, and others have not realized that so much, but they are now seeing it because they've got time to hear people, see what's going on, and also time, maybe some not financially, but some will have time now to go, yeah, now it's time for me. It's time to invest in myself. And they appreciate, as you mentioned before, all the things and the times that you've got to yourself, and you've got time to look at, am I going too fast? Is life going too quick for me? Am I not savoring moments enough, celebrating moments enough? That's my bad one. Never celebrate, always keep going on and on and forward. But I'm not alone there. So okay, so Amy, what is for you for the future then? So we can't guess what's going to happen, obviously, and we'll have our ideas, but let's say we're in a brand new world, whatever that is, and we can have the freedom to move out. What are your plans? Have you got any plans, or what is it something you would like to do now?
So the fascinating thing is that, originally my husband and I, we were planning on leaving here in May and traveling the world. So that's why I actually tried to not take on too many clients. Since we're kind of stuck here, I've been taking on more clients. I've been rolling out group programs and things. And it dawned on both my husband and I, with our work, we can work from anywhere. Do we need to necessarily set a certain place to be home, or could we just hunker down wherever there's internet and just do the work from there for a few months and move on? So that's honestly what we're toying with is, where would we want to sit for a few months and then move on to the next place and explore that new place? Like, do we really need a traditional home per se, a home base? And I think we really don't. And we're very excited about this notion of doing this thing, because we were planning on traveling for a year and then going home.
Yeah.
But now it's like, well, the world's our oyster. And it almost feels like things are shifting that way, like with Google announcing that they're going to let everyone work from anywhere in the world until July 2021. And so, yeah, it seems like that will be the new norm in many aspects.
Yeah.
That,
It's interesting because before all this happened, I know we're over here in the UK, the talk was about trying to reduce the 5 day to 4 days, because there are countries that I think it's, well, I'm gonna guess this, I think it was Norway and countries like that, who are doing a 4 day work, and they are getting better productivity in their staff by doing 4 days, where people come in and do 5 days are not doing any more, and sometimes it's less. But then suddenly this has happened, and employers are now already saying there is better productivity from their employees than if they were at work, and now thinking and how they can adapt that and keep people to what they want to do, because obviously for a business it's going to be less overhead costs of smaller buildings, maybe hot seat, call them hot seats, don't they, hot desks. So yeah, you're right. I think for us as a freelance individuals, we can go anywhere around the world as long as we've got internet, even if it is Ghana. As you know, my connections in India, now in Germany, but in India it's not very good. It's quite poor. But there are times where you can get some certain time of the day, you can get it, and that's how one has to work. Just find like what's the best time. That's the way I've got to fit it. So my clients have to fit in that time, and we'll make sure we do it. But it's good. So that's your future. That's what you're going to be doing, and that's what you're. Well, basically you're leaving it open.
Yes, pretty much. And to your point about the productivity, we always talk about this concept of time management. And my philosophy, it's not about time management, it's about energy management. And when you're out of energy, it doesn't matter how much more time you're working, that work is not productive. And so it's all about managing that energy and what amount of time, it doesn't matter. And I had to learn that the hard way. I used to sleep 4 or 5 hours and think that's normal. And I'm like, well, I just don't have time to sleep. I have all this stuff to do. And it was my husband's influence that got me to start sleeping. And I realized I'm actually more productive once I'm rested, I have the energy, and I can get the same amount done that I used to in 12 hours in less time now. And I actually feel good doing it too. And then I have all this time for all this other stuff. So it's all about energy management.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone knows that subconsciously, but they just haven't brought it to the forefront and seen it, have they?
Yeah, it's hard, and I'm actually speaking at a conference in a few weeks on how do you set those boundaries and shut off, because it's so much harder when you're working from home now, and there's this blend of work and home, whereas before you had demarcations of, okay, I'm leaving for the office now, so now I'm at work, now I'm coming home, and I change out of my work clothes into something comfortable and I'm in a different space. It's a demarcation that I am home now, versus now it's like kind of blended, and it makes it so much harder for people to shut off.
Yeah, yeah, and that's great. And you said at your conference in a few weeks,
Yes.
online, I take it.
Yes. Yeah. Virtual conference.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, I have not yet done a virtual conference. That's exciting. I mean, we've done you have your general connections where you're doing connecting with other people, but not actually a proper conference. So that'd be exciting. Hopefully, fingers crossed that your internet stays okay.
It's during the day, so it should be okay.
Yeah. So let's keep the weather and tight. Okay.
Yeah.
So before and all of this now, I've just said all your plans have gone, and you know what you're going to do. You're keeping it nice and open. If there was anything you can kind of change that's happening right now, even though it's probably not in your power, but let's say it was, is there anything right now that you would change in the world, anywhere in the country?
If I had the power to change anything, I would change people to become more kind, loving, and compassionate. Because I think that kindness, love, and compassion is what makes the world go around. And if all of us had more of that, it would make so much of a difference in how we all see the world, how we see each other. Yeah, and I cannot say how much more of that we need in the world. There's never enough of it.
No.
And if each person even did like one nice thing, one kind thing, or was compassionate with one other person, imagine the ripple effect around the world. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it started with the leaders of the countries as well, wouldn't it?
Yes.
uh, Interestingly, as there was a post I put up once, but wasn't actually my original one, but it showed how many countries were doing really well and how many countries weren't doing really well. So you had USA, UK, and other countries that are not doing well in leadership in how they're dealing with this, but and many other things. And then they showed these other countries like Taiwan, Korea, Germany, New Zealand. Are you going to guess what I'm going to say next? All of these countries that are doing well are led by women.
Women, yes.
And we all know, and I know you're very much about empowering women as well. You know, if we can empower more women empowered, the better this world will be. I truly believe that's why I became a coach in the first beginning, a life coach. But I'm already witnessing it, and that's my positive out of this. And you're now witnessing. You can see this proof there. It's such evidential proof. It doesn't mean that men can't do this. It just means that we've not had the right role models for leading this way. But now all this this kindness, and that's coming through. Everyone's got a bit more empathy. It's not just about politics. And I'm with you on that. I would. That's my change, because if you change that, you change the world. So if we have more sort of Amy in this world, we'll be a better place for sure. Amy, it's been lovely being on this show. I really appreciate you being here. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. And hopefully we'll see more of you in the future.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.